Good afternoon, X. I grew up in New England living in a haunted house, pic semi-related. People always questioned it until they stayed over and realized odd shit would happen. After my dad died, we sold the house and now someone else lives there. I hope they have a better time with it. When I was a child, I remember being scared of the hallway my room was in. I had fasted weapons and remember attacking the air. I used to cry I couldn't sleep due to the light coming out of the door appearing on the wall in my childhood room before I took my older brother's room. I quickly moved to my older brother's room when he left for college. We moved to Florida when I was 8 as my dad's work took him down there and lived there until I was 12. When we moved back, nothing really happened. Until we were visiting Florida when I was 16 for Christmas and the pipes burst as the house lost power during a really bad blizzard. We were out of the house 8 months as the property was cleaned and parts completely rebuilt from the studs. It was after that time that shit got really bad and stayed that way. I never thought of the pre-move to Florida stuff until after we moved back in. It was August, a few weeks before we had to go back to school. We had lived out of a hotel room for the past 8 months. Once we got the all clear, my mom, younger brother, and I decided to camp out at the newly finished house. We had no furniture yet as it was all destroyed. That night I remember having a sleeping bag in my redone room. At first the crickets/frogs outside felt so loud despite being indoors. My brother woke me up and told me he couldn't sleep. Then we started hearing walking about on the upstairs floor where my mom was. We figured she couldn't sleep too, went to check but my mom was asleep in the living room. Oh fuck. Was someone in the house? We wake her up to let her know. She listens, no more footsteps. Anon, stop being scared. Go back to bed. Younger bro Anon, set up your bag in his room. Nothing happens after. Then it got worse. Come home from school a few weeks later. Mom is freaked out. Ask what's going on. Earlier that day, the curtain guy came by to install window treatments. During the install he interrupts my mom to ask, do you have a dog upstairs? She answers no, asks why. Guy says he hears running around and banging. They go to living room where he was drilling. All of a sudden there's a thrashing. Guy says going to lunch and just left. Service called to notify someone would be back another day to finish install. We joke that maybe a ghost is upstairs, then we hear what sounds like something big falling onto the floor. We run upstairs to my parents' bedroom. My dad's work shoes are in the middle of the floor. He is ex-military. He was one of the neatest people I ever knew. We wonder, did they maybe fall from something? But there's nothing to fall from and he always stores his shoes on a shoe tree in the closet. At that moment, we hear what sounds like glass clinking, think 2 wine glasses cheers, in his office. We go inside, it's ice cold in there despite it being early September. We both go early to get my brother from school. What then followed for the few years of high school I had left were similar situations. Often my brother and I would hear walking and running upstairs. You could hear people talking despite us living in an isolated cul-de-sac in a forested area. Things would just go missing, with them reappearing days later right out in the open, like I would drop a pen and it would roll under my desk. I would look and nothing there, only for it to show up on the kitchen table a week later. The house doors would also lock themselves. We lived in a low crime area so we never locked the doors, yet sometimes we would come home to find the doors and windows all locked. I would often have to wait for my mom to come home if I left my keys inside. Some really bad moments included. One time my brother and I were in the basement. It was the type where half of it faced the ground due to the house being built on a slope. We would often see things walk by the windows. One night while my parents were out and I was babysitting my brother and his friend, we heard people screaming upstairs like they were arguing with each other. When we went up there, again cold as ice and deathly quiet. When we went back downstairs we heard a door slam. The house was new, too, built in the 1960s. We found out the entire area used to be a farmstead in the 1600s, before being abandoned and only resettled in the early 1900s. I moved to Miami for school, far away from there, and lived there for 6 years. My parents and brothers would occasionally bring up more happenings of the like, including objects flying across the room, lights turning on when they were out, and strange smells like cigar smoke. No one in my family smoked. After I finished college, my parents divorced and my dad then contracted cancer. I moved in with my dad and my fiancée from Florida to help care for him in his final years, and that's when it got the worst. Some of the prior incidents that happened when I was at school would happen when my parents fought, and my dad dying and divorce led to more negativity that egged it on. After we moved in, the above stuff continued to happen. My wife especially started to hate it as she felt I am always being watched feeling all the time. It reminded me of when my friends would come over post pipes and reported the same thing. Some more memorable moments include: Christmas time one year, I was decorating the tree. Dad was upstairs, drunk, and listening to basketball on the TV. Wife mentions that I should check on him, he was in bad shape at that point. I go to walk into the stairway area leading upstairs, when she hears a loud bang. She finds me on the floor, knocked out, but nothing showing why. I wake up a moment, saying something about it being too dark, except the house had lights on. Shouting. We would often hear the arguing noises I would hear when I was in HS. One night it was so bad it woke us up. My dad was over at his GF's house, but we didn't know. It sounded like two people in a vicious fight, bumping things, and screaming. We go upstairs, everything is fine. We then hear running downstairs, something we would never hear as that usually only happened upstairs. We go down there, all the televisions are on, it's 2 a.m. We both went and slept in the car for the night. Basement continued. The basement mentioned above was finished, so we had a home theater down there. I always liked the basement as the stuff had never happened down there, except seeing figures outside. One night we hear a commotion outside in the backyard, which goes about 20 acres back into heavy woods. It's winter, so usually the woods are incredibly still and quiet. We had friends over, including one who was an Eagle Scout. He points a campfire out in the trees. My wife has a bad feeling about this. We decide to check it out in case it's a homeless guy out there. We had cell phones. We go out there and the fire disappears, we can't find it. My Eagle Scout friend is freaked out. We run through the snow back to the house, all the house lights are on and doors are locked. My dad was at a bar getting drunk, he died of alcoholism later, and my friend remarked this shit was why he hated going to my house. Playing with the cat. We had a cat, my parents weren't big on pets when I was a kid, and I would often tease him. This included running my finger around on the floor to get his hunter mind set up. I would then hide treats for him. One day I am doing this in the living room, and I was flung back into a wall. Wife was staring at me, say it looked like someone picked me up and threw me. Cat did not react. The corridor. Remember when I was a kid and was upset due to the light coming out of the door appearing on the wall in my childhood room? That room is now a library/office. My wife's grandma died that morning, she was crying badly in her room. After consoling her all night, I went into the office to try and wake up for the day. Fall asleep in chair. Wife wakes up, finds me asleep in the room. Gets me a blanket and pillow as I am in an armchair, I awake. Tell her, oh your grandma is missing you, but she will see you when you go into the corridor, I refer to it as a hallway. She is freaked out as I appear to be out, but saying this, she asks what? I respond, she's in the corridor with Natalie, they want you to know it's okay. I find out later that Natalie was her childhood friend who died in an accident. She wakes me up, I had no memory of this exchange. After my dad died, we had to sell the house as part of the estate. Strange shit happened well after that up to the night we finished packing up everything for the new owners. A few nights after he died, my older sister was up to help us with the funeral. She slept on the floor, next to my dad's bed. The next night she slept in the basement as I keep feeling someone pushing me, but didn't remember anything happening to her in the house when she was kid. The next day we all went out to dinner, we came back to the house, lights all on and the doors all locked. Sister then remembers it happening before I was born, but only once. After that my wife and I lived in the house for a few more months to get everything packed up while we searched for a buyer. Often we would at night hear my dad talking on the telephone, being able to pick out phrases and names. Tape recordings would just be silent. A new noise started happening alongside the walking/running, where it would sound like a wooden chair being skidded/pushed across the hardwood floors, which would always precede other noises/talking. My dad's car horn would honk sometimes out of nowhere. We thought it was maybe broken. The guy we sold it to owned a used car dealership, said he found nothing wrong with the horn. The final few days clearing out the house were a nightmare, followed by a chorus-sounding noise from everywhere in the house. Sure, it could have been stress and feelings, etc., but both my wife and brother both heard it. After we put the final stuff away in the pod we had in the driveway and did a final check of all the empty rooms, we all got in the car to drive away for the last time, and a light was on in the house. We didn't go back in. I also haven't been in the house since. 10 years later, I have not experienced anything like what happened there. When I talk to people I knew in high school, everyone mentions, "Do your parents still own that haunted house?"